Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So, San Diego Comic-Con has come and gone. The Rings of Power, Amazon's Lord of the Rings rip-off series, because it's got nothing to do with Lord of the Rings really. We know that because Tolkien's work isn't actually in this show, because the showrunners actually told us that they're trying to create the novel that Tolkien never wrote, and they don't have the rights to it. So if you've been following my channel for the last few months, you've seen all these videos. I've gone through in detail all the information, all the evidence that this has nothing to do with Tolkien, and they're just ripping off Tolkien's work to use their agendas to put whatever they want in this new story. I'm almost half inclined to believe that these shill article sites, like Screen Rant here, are taking the piss out of the fans just to get clicks, and they're just trolling just to get clicks, because if you've read the books or you've read anything about Tolkien's work, you would know that this has nothing to do, this show right here has nothing to do with his works. So let's take a look at what Screen Rant has to say about the fans and this new trailer, which has been ratioed to hell, which we'll take a look at as well. Rings of Power's Comic-Con trailer makes fan complaints look stupid. Oh, really? The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power's San Diego Comic-Con trailer proves that a lot of the criticism aimed at the show doesn't make sense. So the latest trailer from Comic-Con, SDCC trailer right here. I don't know who the hell this is. Apparently I heard it was Sauron. Apparently it's not Sauron. I don't know. But the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power trailer for San Diego Comic-Con has over 6.6 million views already. Look at the ratio on it. 171,000 dislikes, 63,000 upvotes, and the comments are amazing. They are just trolling them like as if it's generic fantasy. When Boromir said, "I am Iron Man," he sacrificed himself to save the hobbits. It brought me to tears. And then Obi-Wan tells Elrond, "That's no ring, it's a space station." Like, they're just trolling Amazon for putting out this terrible content, and it's not Lord of the Rings. So everyone who says Lord of the Rings adaptation, like, or prequel, it's got nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. And we know that because the showrunners themselves months ago said in an article on Vanity Fair, "Can we come up with the novel Tolkien never wrote and do it as the mega event series that could only happen now?" So we know that this has nothing to do with Tolkien's work because, as I've shown before, the rights they have are to Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings appendices. So it's like, how much can you pull from First and Second Age out of Lord of the Rings appendices? Not much if you really want to do a story based on the Silmarillion, Unfinished Tales, History of Middle-earth, like all these time periods, which is before Lord of the Rings. So we know it's bullshit and it's got nothing to do with Tolkien. But the fans are complaining, and they shouldn't be, because the latest trailer was so amazing, and it wasn't really. I've done a breakdown of this trailer. I did a live stream when it came out. I was with Mara Jade, and we broke this down and just showed how absolutely ridiculous this is, and none of it makes sense. They want to talk about how there's characters based on the works of J.R. Tolkien. It's just not. So this guy says, "The Rings of Power Comic-Con trailer offers audiences the best look at Prime Video's Lord of the Rings show, and it proves how unjustified a lot of the criticism aimed at the upcoming series really is." What? Less than 2 days after Rings of Power's first official teaser was released, a new trailer was released at Comic-Con, revealing new locations, characters, and potential storylines for Prime Video's Middle-earth show. That's what they should call it. Prime Video's rip-off Middle-earth show, not Tolkien or Lord of the Rings prequel. Despite the exciting previously released teasers and promotional pictures, there was still a portion of the audience who believed Amazon's Rings of Power was not being truthful to Tolkien's vision. A complaint the newest Rings of Power trailer puts to rest. No, it doesn't. Just doesn't. That's not true. So let's go through these. I think there's 3 things in here. So, previously released teasers. Exciting previously released teasers. Okay, let's go. This is the teaser from February. Now, let's take a look at this. There are so many comments on this. Nearly 51,500 comments. But there are so many dislikes on this video, it's temporarily unavailable. I've never seen that before, because you can see them on the one that just came out, 171,000, and you can see them on another teaser which they said is exciting, 341,000 dislikes back in July 14th. And this one, February 14th, temporarily unavailable because there's just so many dislikes. Yes, that's how exciting, that's how much the fans love this and should be praising it, because the latest one was really good. Well, the fans beg to differ, with 6.6 million views and 171,000 dislikes. Now, also in this trailer, they said the characters. There was a portion of the audience who believed it was not being truthful to Tolkien's vision, because, as I've shown in my previous video, this character right here is the Queen Regent Muriel. Now, she is described in Tolkien's works. So this is not a character that Amazon could go, well, it's not really defined by Tolkien what she is described as, so we can make her whatever we want. Queen Muriel is actually described by Tolkien as fairer than silver or ivory or pearls. Now, this is a fan recreation of Muriel, And this is what Amazon has done. So Amazon takes Tolkien's work that they're really technically not really supposed to, because they don't have the rights to it, and they changed a character that was already described as being fairer than silver or ivory or pearls, and they changed her to this. Nothing to do with the actor or anything. This is about Amazon changing characters that are already described and already defined in Tolkien's lore. Now, you want to talk about the half-wits? Okay, I'll give them leeway, whatever. You want to say Tolkien said they were darker of skin? You want to make them look dark as dark as can be? Whatever. Fine. Take your leeway and run with it. But when you've got characters that are defined in the books like this that you're not supposed to be using, well, you are not being truthful to Tolkien's vision. So this guy, I have no idea what the hell he's talking about. And clearly, it just means he's never read the source material that the show is supposed to be based on, but not really because they don't have the rights to that. This is how ridiculous this whole Amazon situation is with Rings of Power. And the promotional pictures. We've also had an interesting go with the promotional pictures with that same character. Because here is a bunch of the posters that were released. There's Galadriel, Warrior Galadriel, which didn't happen, but we're not using Tolkien's work, so this is just a complete fantasy series of whatever Amazon wanted to create from Tolkien's work. Again, the only closest characters that I've seen for what they should look like is right here. Gil-galad and Pharazôn. The way he's described, I described him in my last video, he's the closest one who is actually described in the book as he actually is for Amazon standards. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is Muriel, the Queen Regent. Look at this helmet, is absolutely stupid. I don't know if that's CG or if that's actually the helmet because it looks so bad. Plus the scale armor, like there's so many pinpoints you can get into where she can get hit. And the helmet, like if you're gonna have a nose guard on a helmet, like it's supposed to protect your nose, why does it come up to here? Not to mention all these spikes going off the head. If a spear went into that or something, you can just grab it, rip a head, broken neck easy. Like, this is so dumb, so dumb. But it's okay because the last trailer was really good, this guy said. Okay, so they want to talk about how Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy wasn't itself a one-to-one adaptation. No, it wasn't, and a lot of people were unhappy with that. Saying Peter Jackson's trilogy wasn't a one-to-one adaptation isn't an excuse to say Amazon can do whatever the they want with this show. That's not an excuse. It's always going to be difficult for any production to go back to Middle-earth given how successful and impactful those movies were, 100%. This was proved by the Hobbit trilogy, which I've kind of defended, but I can accept that there is no way that it's anywhere near Lord of the Rings trilogy. But the fact that Peter Jackson wasn't going to be working on the Hobbit as director, it was going to be Guillermo del Toro. And then Peter Jackson got actually really sick at the beginning of production. So not just to scrap all of Guillermo del Toro's work in a few short months before the production had to begin, so they had to redo a lot of stuff. Jackson also got really sick and he had to go to hospital, so he was out of production for a while in the beginning of production. And then also Warner Brothers doing a few things that they wanted in the movies. So there were a lot of factors in The Hobbit which kind of brought it down from the Rings level, which despite also being directed by Peter Jackson, did not come anywhere close to receiving the same acclaim as the original Lord of the Rings films. Yeah, as I just explained why. Now, 10 years after The Hobbit, audiences will get a chance to go back to live-action Middle-earth in Rings of Power. The Prime Video Lord of the Rings show will cover Middle-earth's Second Age, thousands of years before the events of Peter Jackson's movies. Yes, given how far back in the timeline this show takes place compared to Frodo's story, it makes sense for Prime Video to look relatively different from the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit movies. Yeah, different doesn't mean terrible costumes. Like, this is one of the better ones, I reckon. But some of these images and these costumes are just god-awful. It looks really, really cheap, some of this stuff. Just really, really cheap. You're spending nearly $500 million on this first season, and your costumes look like out of a reject shop or something. What the hell? However, that did not stop a portion of the audience from criticizing the Rings of Power as not being faithful to Tolkien's novels. A significant part of those criticisms was not just about the visuals and the story. The Rings of Power has been targeted with complaints about its diverse cast and LGBTQ representation. I don't care if you have an LGBTQ plus person playing a character. I don't care, whatever. But this one before that, saying diverse cast here is a way to conceal the fact that it's legitimate criticism to say that this character right here, being played by this actor, is not right when you're talking about what the book actually describes her as. So this is an easy way out for the shill sites to want to project racism and anti-diversity when you just use buzzwords like diverse and LGBT representation. It's got nothing to do with LGBT representation. It's got to do with, this is what the book says, and this is what the character looks like now. And they want to say it's often masked as remarks about the show not being faithful to Tolkien's books. It's not being masked like that. It's legitimately, that is the criticism. It's got nothing to do with this actor right here and what skin color she is. It's got nothing to do with the actor. I actually liked her in a few other shows. So what are you talking about? She played Nadine in the Shooter series, so I liked her in it. So does that make me non-racist because I liked her in a show where she was also a black character? So it's not masking as remarks about not being faithful to Tolkien's books. It is actually remarks about not being faithful to Tolkien's books. While no production should have to respond or pander to such criticism. Yes, they should. Just because you're saying it's racist or anti-diversity doesn't mean you shouldn't be beholden to criticism because you've put this character looking like this when she's described like this in the book. That's legit criticism. The newest Rings of Power trailer shows that when it comes to recapturing the magic of Middle-earth, the Peter Jackson adapted, the Amazon series has absolutely nailed it. Oh, Jesus. Did you even watch the trailer? I will say the CG and the sets are probably the best looking things. Like if you look at the other trailers, that looks pretty Middle-earth. That looks amazing. But that's where all the budget went, into the CGI and the sets. What about the costumes and the actual characters and keeping the story? Well, you can't keep the story because it's not based on Tolkien's books anyway. This is frustrating, man. Whatever actual criticism audience may have had about Rings of Power not looking or feeling like a part of Lord of the Rings, well, no, it kind of looks like it, I just said, from the movie should now be eased with the Comic-Con trailer. Despite the significant timeline differences, the Second Age Middle-earth depicted in the Rings of Power trailer still feels like a spiritual successor to the Peter Jackson films. What the hell? Even if the production and creative teams are different. Yes, production and creative teams, because Tom Shippey, the scholar that you're watching the appendices of Lord of the Rings, they fired him 3 years ago before shooting even started. So they let him go a long time ago. So what Tolkien knowledge are you going to get from this show when you don't have a Tolkien expert? And the experts that they do use or claim to use that are always talking on Twitter have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, as I've proven before in multiple videos. Obviously, every adaptation will have its own tone and aesthetic, but there is nothing suggesting the Rings of Power doesn't have the potential to be both a great show and a great Lord of the Rings adaptation. It's not a Lord of the Rings adaptation because Lord of the Rings is the trilogy set in the Third Age, the end of the Third Age. This is First and Second Age. This isn't Lord of the Rings. This is Lord of the Rings in name only because they're using the name Lord of the Rings to get people to watch it. It's got nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. With a series of teasers, promotional pictures, and an incredible San Diego Comic-Con trailer, good God, Rings of Power has set the stage for a promising first season, which is nearly $500 million worth of trash. Despite being technically a prequel to the main story, the possibilities as to where the story can go are endless. Yeah, you know why they're endless? Because they're not doing anything that's related to the books at all. If it was related to the books, it wouldn't be endless stories because you would just keep it to the story. But no, they're condensing the timeline. They're not using anything in the books because they're not allowed to. That's why they're just making whatever the hell they want. This is why people are commenting on all these trailers saying this looks like generic fantasy. There's nothing in this that is Tolkien. When Sauron said, I want the truth, and Frodo responded, you can't handle the truth. Like, the backlash to this is epic. 171,000 dislikes. Temporarily unavailable because there's so many dislikes. 341,000 dislikes. Like, come on. It remains to be seen how exactly similar to previous Middle-earth movies, but also how distinct and unique Rings of Power will be. It's going to be unique because it's not going to be having anything to do with Tolkien's work. So there you go. Screen Rant, absolutely shilling for this terrible Amazon adaptation that has nothing to do with Tolkien's work. And going after the fans for saying that this show is not being faithful to Tolkien's books, while telling us we're masking our remarks as racist and anti-diverse or anti-representation. These people are just hiding behind shields, diversity shields, from criticism. And San Diego Comic-Con's trailer is absolutely garbage. This show comes out in just over a month, and this has absolutely nothing to do with Tolkien's works, as the showrunners have already said. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share this video out there, and I'd like to thank DanielJames, member at the Two Towers level. We will see you all in the next one.